This episode of the Jim Stroud podcast is brought to you by Proven Base, an AI-powered talent acquisition and deep search sourcing platform that helps organizations find, engage, and hire hard-to-find candidates from thousands of real-time online sources. See it in action for yourself by visiting www.provenbase.com. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Stroud podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Hello. Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of this. So I am Michelle Cass. I'm a global talent acquisition and human capital leader with over 20 years experience building and scaling transformational talent organizations for large Fortune 100 companies and many different high growth businesses. My background spans RPO, MSP, total talent solutions, workforce analytics, AI-enabled recruiting, and large-scale operational leadership, really often in very complex matrixed environments. And I'm also the author of Hired by Humanity. I wrote Hired by Humanity because I really reached an inflection point within my career and within the industry. I've seen kind of firsthand how powerful technology and AI can be when it's used well and without damaging the humanity piece or when humanity is stripped out of the process. I've watched candidates really feel dehumanized by systems that were meant to help. And then I've seen recruiters burn out and chase efficiency metrics without meaning. So I really sat down to think about, what needed to happen and really that kind of that intersection and making sure that you're leveraging technology but not necessarily replacing humanity. Humanity is key to a successful brand from a hiring perspective. And, AI should make humans better and really not remove them from the process. So that's really the why behind the book, and a little bit about my background.
Wow. Wow. You stay busy. You stay busy,
Yes,
that's for sure.
it's
That's
been
for
fun.
sure. Um, wow, so many questions. Um, okay, I'll start this way. AI is everywhere in talent acquisition right now. It's everywhere. What do most leaders misunderstand about what AI is actually good at, in your opinion?
So I think, a lot of people are debating right now of whether or not AI is replacing humans. And I really think we should be focused on the debate should be more around amplifying that human process, right? It's
Hmm.
not going to fix a broken process. So you have to start, kind of begin with the end in mind. AI doesn't fix culture, it really exposes it. So I don't believe that AI should replace humans, but it should amplify humans.
When you say amplify, what does that look like in real hiring decisions?
Yeah. So I think, again, automation without intention is really how trust gets lost. So I
Hmm.
look at kind of that low-hanging fruit, really the administrative tasks and burdens that are on the typical recruiter, right? Removing a lot of that administrative from their process, giving them time to do that high touch, really calibrating with the hiring leaders, building trust with the hiring leaders, and improving candidate experience overall because they're spending more time with the candidates that are qualified for the role and taking away some of that administrative tasks.
Yeah. From what you've seen, when does efficiency cross the line and start doing real harm to candidates or employees for that matter?
Yeah, so I think again, we certainly want to optimize for
Hmm.
efficiency, but we can't just do that alone, right? And that's where that human connection comes in. We've got to have that recruiter gain that credibility. We've got to have the recruiter focused on the employer brand. Because again, AI can, by automating and by automating and pulling again those administrative tasks or handling those administrative tasks, that gives that recruiter the ability to improve the brand and really showcase the why on the organization, and it improves that recruiter capability and credibility overall.
Okay. I know that a lot of leaders, they believe automation automatically equals progress, or we're making great strides because we've automated or we implemented AI in some way. Why is that assumption risky in your opinion?
Can you rephrase that, Jim? What's the
Yeah.
assumption?
So um, a lot of leaders believe that by adding automation or maybe implementing AI, that equals progress. They're getting somewhere with their organization because of all this technology. But that could be a risky assumption. Does more technology in your process necessarily mean that you are making your workflows more efficient? Maybe
Yeah,
that's a better way of saying
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely not. I think, again, especially when you've got a lot of different tools and technology, it gets clunky. I think you really have to go back to the basics and look
Mm,
at the process, right? Before you start to think about all the different tools and technology to implement, look at that process. I'm a very much a Lean Six Sigma background person, so I'm all about kind of go to the Gemba, go to where the work is done, eliminate waste from the process. So I think that's really where you have to focus first, and then start to think about what technology and tools will amplify our process for us. But you've got to fix that broken process first before you start implementing all the different tools.
yeah. When you mentioned the broken processes and optimizing systems so much, I think sometimes companies can forget about people. They're optimizing and optimizing and optimizing,
Mhm.
but they forget about the people that they're working with for these systems. What do you think is the biggest warning sign that an organization has optimized so much they've forgotten about its people?
Yeah. Yeah, again, I think look at again eliminating waste from the process. Again, bringing in all these different technology and tools is not necessarily transformation, right? You have to basically look at adoption, and design of those tools and tech before you can, bring all of those different tools and tech. So over amplifying your tools and tech doesn't necessarily just mean that things are better. Like I said, I think it's really going back to your process and ensuring that those tools and technology are truly going to amplify that process.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were saying that, I was thinking that there are so many um, companies that have enabled or implemented AI in their processes in some manner. And can you think of an example of when implementing AI genuinely improved fairness in the hiring process or enhanced trust in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's critical that, you evaluate to ensure that you're eliminating really bias from that process. So there are tools and technology that you can pull in, that will help to eliminate some of that bias, but I think you really have to focus on your teams and training
Mm,
your hiring leaders so that you can ensure that the bias is removed, right? Because there is a risk around bias when you're implementing these tools. So I think it's just critical from a data perspective that you assess, that you design, and that your decisions around it really are focused on removing bias, and that you're training folks effectively so that you can scale it accordingly.
yeah. One thing I've been hearing a lot about lately is recruiter burnout. I think the recruiters that have not been laid off have been straddled with extra work and is burning them out.
Yes.
How much of that burnout you think is driven by how we're defining and measuring success in talent teams, especially
Yeah.
when recruiters are doing so much more with less these
Yeah.
days?
Yeah. Yeah, technology, I think, is a big part of why recruiters are burned out, right?
Yeah,
There's so many different tools. Everybody wants the new shiny penny to come into the process and amplify it and streamline things. And I think we're looking at so many different tools and technology. There's so many different competitors out there. As organizations are transforming, I think they're leveraging, they're testing different tools, and I think that's leading to a lot of the burnout. So my recommendation again is kind of go back to the process and really assess where the technology will create efficiencies and eliminate that recruiter burnout. Because again, I think a lot of those tools and technology, everybody, like I said, everybody wants that new shiny penny. And there is no silver bullet. So we certainly have to focus on ensuring that it's right for our systems, right for our process, and help eliminate that burnout for recruiters.
for sure, for sure. As you were saying that, I was thinking that about the metrics around how these recruiters are being measured. I know there's a lot of emphasis on speed and volume,
Mhm.
but there are other metrics that matter as well. What would you say? What would you say the emphasis should be on in terms of recruiter metrics beyond speed and volume?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think candidate experience is definitely key,
Mm,
and clearly that employment brand piece, right, will come into that candidate experience. We all, leverage Glassdoor on a regular basis to
sure.
assess that the culture within the organization, right, and is it an engaging, collaborative environment? So I do think candidate experience is a key metrics that we should be focused on. Speed clearly is critical, but not the end all be all by any means. I think candidate quality metrics are also key to focus on, and ensuring, upfront that calibration, right, that we're looking at, have we really calibrated the role effectively, and can we measure that through, time to fill metrics. If we're not calibrating effectively on the front end, right, then we'll have process delays. So I think looking at the calibration of the role with a hiring leader is also critical.
Yeah, yeah. One when you keep saying when you say critical, it makes me think about other conversations I've had with other TA leaders, especially around data-driven hiring. That's
Mhm.
like one of our favorite buzzwords. When leaders say they want data-driven hiring, what questions should they ask before deploying all these AI tools, you think?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think again, the candidate quality is critical, right?
Mm,
And looking at kind of those predictive measures, right? I mean, we know upfront potentially where we're going to struggle, what are the most challenging roles potentially that we have within the organization, and how do we, leverage those predictive analytics to fill those roles faster with, top talent, right? So I think looking at that as well as a lot of the sales roles, those revenue generating roles, I think are critical to the company's
yeah,
performance, right? So I think it's to focus on some of those revenue generating roles and looking at opportunities to use data to make those decisions on, pulling the trigger on quality candidates faster. I think also is a key and critical area to focus on.
yeah. And speaking with you, I don't get the feeling that you're anti-AI. I could be wrong, but that's not the sense I'm getting from you.
Yeah,
What are
no,
some
absolutely not.
okay, what are some conditions or things leaders need to think about when implementing AI in the workplace so that
Yeah.
um, it integrates well with the humans in the office?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am definitely not anti-AI by any means. I truly believe that we have to leverage AI if we're going to be competitive long term, right? So I look at AI as an accelerant and not a replacement to the process. But AI does not fix culture, right? I think AI can help expose a negative culture within the organization. So I think leaders really need to focus on that and looking at tools that will help really identify, what aspects of the process are broken that are going to affect our overall culture and that candidate experience and candidate engagement in general. I think technology really should remove that friction, but not remove the people from the process.
I like that. I like that. I like the emphasis on candidate experience.
Mhm.
'Cause I think sometimes that gets lost
Yes,
in the
it
process.
does. Absolutely.
Um, Speaking of that, what responsibility do you think HR and TA leaders have when technology decisions hurt candidate experience? I mean, it's like you got to have this technology to process all these people. But if this technology that's needed to process these people is hurting candidate experience, it's like a zero-sum game. What responsibility do you think HR and TA, what responsibility do HR and TA leaders have when this technology potentially hurts candidate experience?
Yeah, I really think it's again about identifying what tools and technology will optimize your process without creating a negative candidate experience. So, and really that's all about the book, right? And that human touch element. I think
Yeah.
we all have a responsibility to ensuring that we're going to still have that human touch. We are not replacing recruiters by any means. We are just optimizing recruiters with the technology. So I think looking at it from that lens, being able to say, we have to continue to transform our process to get better, to create those efficiencies. But how do we really focus on leveraging the best of the recruiter to create the best outcome and the best candidate experience? Because the candidates, again, if they don't have a good positive experience, that will impact our brand, especially for, organizations that are consumer products organizations. I go back to my Pepsi days, is a Pepsi drinker, right? So when they were going through that process, they wanted those candidates to have that positive experience. So I think it's really incumbent upon HR, TA leaders to make sure, yes, we need to transform, but we should always have that candidate experience in mind throughout the transformation.
For sure, for sure. Um, there's a growing concern in the HR and TA community that they're being phased out gradually by all this new technology, which I think is a real concern for a lot of folks. Well, for everyone, uh, in no small part. Um, what part of the recruiting process do you feel should never be fully automated, no matter how advanced AI becomes?
Yeah, again, I think it's the humans that really have that empathy, right? That
Mhm.
can, provide that white glove, both to the hiring leaders within the organization and also with the candidates, and really leveraging, their expertise on the front end, calibrating that role with the hiring leader. So I think it's critical to set everyone up for success on the front end. That talent advisor or recruiter really truly has that calibration session or intake with the hiring manager. I think building that trust early and upfront and setting the stage for what the expectations are within the process. What's the expectation that the recruiter or the talent advisor has on the hiring leader? I think that should continue to be a high touch process. And then I think, at offer phases, right? I think the recruiter should stay in close contact and really look at, are there any red flags from a candidate perspective, are they, going to accept the role, right? We certainly want to make sure that we're guiding them through that process and that we're answering any questions that they have. So making sure that that candidate has a high touch process throughout, and so they accept the role, especially for, like I said, some of these critical to fill roles. Where there's, low supply, high demand.
Mm,
And then, kind of at that offer phase, I think it's critical to have that human element be part of those phases.
for sure, for sure. One last question for you, if I may. If you could leave HR and talent leaders with one uncomfortable truth they need to hear right now, what would that uncomfortable truth be?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think it's a challenging one for sure, because there is the need for technology, right? We can't. We've got to adopt it, or like I said earlier, we will be left behind from a competition perspective. But again, I think, just making sure that you are supporting your teams, that you're supporting that the human element pieces as you're identifying the tools and technology to optimize your process, and that you always lead with that trust, right? Again, building that trust, building those relationships, will help kind of amplify and streamline your process overall as you're looking at different tools and technology to bring into the system.
Great, great. Uh, if someone wanted more information about Hired by Humanity or want to reach out to you personally, how can they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hired by Humanity is on sale on Amazon. So you can buy the Kindle version of a digital, or there is a paperback and a hard copy available as well. You can reach out to me at mcas5130@gmail.com. If you have any questions, I would love to entertain, and certainly happy to engage with anybody that reaches out or has questions about the book or anything else for that matter, TA related.
Very cool. It's Michelle Cass, author of Hired by Humanity. Thank you so much for your time, for being on the Jim Stroud podcast.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.
Well, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I'll see you again real soon right here with a brand new episode of the Jim Stroud podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached by email at jimstroud@jimstroud.com. And one last favor, if I may ask, please rate this podcast. 5 stars is preferred, but please comment with your honest opinion. I really appreciate that. All right? Okay, until next time, bye-bye.